amuse the most recent report on Donald Trump, who went to a funeral of an avid supporter and spent 45 minutes talking about himself, and then remembered the person who had died. So I'm not using that as my example. I will be much briefer than 45 minutes plus. I met Edwin a number of years ago at one of the bars downtown, and it was a writers group as well, and we became acquaintances then and have become friends since. We have met and had many vibrant conversations, and it's just terrific to be able to introduce him to the group and also you to the work that he's written if you haven't been introduced to it already. And I'll tell you what I learned in general from him. Firstly, I see lots of personality, tremendous intellectual vitality. He is distinctive, he is insightful. He's a great example of somebody who spans a vista of intellectual interests as well as other kinds of interests. So he is and has been a plumber. He has gone for 2 academic degrees. He has published these 2 books on his own through a great deal of thought and reading on his own. I'm going to tell you where he has spoken before. I wasn't going to, but I'm going to anyway. If I can find it where it is here, he has spoken at venues in the Kennedy Center and the University of Coimbra in Portugal. I hope that's how it's pronounced. And also conferences hosted by the National New Play Network and the Canadian Association of Theatre Research, and so on. To listen to him speak is to find this breadth of philosophical interest and critique, and there's always this verve in him that is wonderful. So tonight I think you're going to be invigorated by the wit of this person and the perspective of this individual, and I think you're going to feel as regaled by everything as I am whenever I get together on top of him. Edwin.
Yes. Thank you for that, Alan. Victoria Writers Society, friends on Zoom, good evening. How's everyone doing? All right. Tonight, I'm sharing with you what I've learned since writing my first book in 2019 to starting my 3rd book. These are tips you can take home with you. This talk is for all of you who have the urge and nerve to write a book. But first, a word about what I write about. I write about the intersection between theater and risk, Macbeth, etiquettes, and low probability, high consequence events. Theater and risk is my gig. My books are how-to books. They inspire writers to write great plays. I just read my friend Michael Poole's play. It's called Baldy Redux. I said, "Damn, Michael, that's a fine play, especially the explosive opening." He replied, "Glad you like it. I rewrote the opening after I read your book."
Oh.
My books are damn good. With insights on writing. My books will give you a different perspective on theater. After reading them, you'll never look at literature or risk the same way. Both titles are available right here at Russell Books in the theater section. Check them out. But let's dive into the talk. Talk is called So You Want to Be a Writer, 6 Secrets to Success with Edwin Wong. It's a half-hour talk. Questions after. The talk is divided into 6 5-minute sections. They are: point 1, to write, you have to have something to say. Point 2, to write, you have to have patience. Point 3, to write, you have to amuse yourself. 4, to write, you have to have a real job. That's a good one. 5, to write, you have to handle the criticism. And 6, to write, you have to write. So we'll start off with point 1. To write, you have to have something to say. Lots of people want to become writers. Writing, however, is hard. Harder than people think. Have you heard the joke about the brain surgeon and writer Margaret Atwood? Okay, let's see if I can pull this off. So, Atwood and the brain surgeon were at a dinner party. The brain surgeon had just retired. So the brain surgeon and Atwood struck up a conversation, and Atwood asked the brain surgeon, "Hey, now that you're retired, what are you going to do?" The brain surgeon replied, "I'm going to become a writer." Then he asked Atwood, "What will you do when you retire?" She replied, "I'm going to become a brain surgeon." The moral of the story is that writing is hard. It's like picking up a whole new career. So that's why to write, you have to have something to say. You have to want it bad enough. My first book took 13 years. It's a long time, a big commitment. That's why to write a book, you have to have something to say. When you have something to say, your message is concentrated. You need this for when you become famous. You got to think ahead. Have you ever heard someone talking about anyone famous saying, "Oh, well, they do a little bit of this and that"? No. It's Stephen King, the horror writer. It's Margaret Atwood, the writer of The Handmaid's Tale. In my own writing, I stick to the theme of risk in literature. In the last 4 years, I've written 2 books, a refereed article, and 13 book chapters, all on the same theme. What I find is that this gives me a fighting chance. Einstein, he came up with the theory of relativity. Curie, she discovered radium. You have to concentrate your power and focus so that people can find you and talk about you. Even when you concentrate your forces, it's hard. Just recently, my work on risk got mentioned in a book by TEDx speaker and New York Times bestseller, Michelle Wucker. Unless I put all my eggs into one basket, it wouldn't have happened. So to write, you have to have something to say. And you really need to have one thing to say. You have to concentrate your forces on the one thing that you're passionate about. You have to go big or go home. That's point 1. Point 2, to write, you have to have patience. Ever heard of psychiatrist Carl Jung? Yeah, everyone knows Carl Jung. He was one of the founders of psychoanalysis. He had something to say. He came up with the theory of synchronicity. synchronicity is a coincidence that's so uncanny that it couldn't have been caused by chance. Instead, it's a mysterious world of archetypes talking through what appears to be chance, or so Jung argued. One time, a reluctant patient who didn't believe in his hocus pocus was recounting to him a dream about a golden scarab. It just happens in some mythologies that the scarab is a symbol of rebirth. At that moment, a June beetle, a golden-colored scarab-like insect, started tapping on the window. Jung opened the window, caught it, and handed it over to his patient as she was recalling her dream. Like this one, he said. She was astounded. She became a believer. To you, the moment marked the patient's rebirth. What were the odds that at the moment of the patient's rebirth, the symbol of rebirth should appear not only in her dream, but at the window?
Very impressive.
So, your seat's over on this end. You just come out in front.
Thank you.
Well, so this was a chance that wasn't a chance. That proves an underlying, more profound connection. So it's a good story, but let's go on and I'll tie this in. When I was a kid, I'd hang out at my friend Emily's house. Her parents had the neatest books, and one of the books was Jung's Memories, Dreams, and Reflections. In it, he tells this story of synchronicity I've just been telling you. He tells the story about the scarab. When I read it, I thought that Jung had just come up with this theory right then and right there. I was amazed. What I didn't know was that it took him decades to get the story right. If you go back to Jung's first conjectures on synchronicity, they're pretty bad. It took him 16 years to put together his first theory of synchronicity. He didn't get it on his first try, nor did he get it on his second try. He spent decades figuring out how to say it, and he never stopped working on it. So to write, you have to have patience. It takes a long time. Looking back on my first book, I was writing, but I hadn't figured out how to say it. I was talking, but I wasn't finding the right words. Driving, but not knowing where I was going. It wasn't until some years later, in a conversation with playwright Donald Connolly, that he gave me the right words. He said to me, "I like your theory of tragedy in which risk becomes the dramatic fulcrum of action." I had been saying the same thing, but he expressed in that one line that risk is the dramatic fulcrum of action. What it took me 2 to 3 pages to say. I thought, damn, that's good. I couldn't have said it better myself. Like you, who took decades to figure out how to express his theory of synchronicity, it's going to take you time to figure out how to say it. Time going on the road. Time going to conferences. Time talking to people. Time getting criticism. time getting feedback. Many of the essays I'm working on now, I've been getting great feedback from Alan. It makes a huge difference, is when you get feedback that you see how others see what you write. And a lot of the times it's different than the way you see it yourself. So this has been point 2. To write, you have to have patience. For ideas to catch on, it takes years. Success for writers isn't measured in months, but in decades. And a lot of the time, fame even comes posthumously. I host an international theater competition called Risk Theater. It's at risktheater.com. And it's in its 5th year now, and it's only now starting to gain traction. So this has been point 2. To write, you have to have patience, because fame is a long game. Point 3, to write, you have to amuse yourself. Remember, writing is the long game. To play the long game, you've got to keep yourself entertained. Here's some tips to keep yourself entertained. Ever notice in movies, directors often throw in Easter eggs, homages to classic movies? Could be the grain of the film, the sepia tone. The book equivalent is the font. And I think, Joey, you were talking about fonts a few moments ago. Go through your favorite books, the ones that inspired you. Learn about fonts. Identify the font your favorite writers use. Set your book in that font. It's a nice Easter egg. It's a nice way to pay homage to your heroes. Both my books are set in Berlin, a classic bold-face font by Carl Eric Forsberg with generous proportions and slightly inclined serifs. This is the same font Nassim Nicholas Taleb used in his first book, Fooled by Randomness, the hidden role of chance in life and in the markets. That's the book that inspired my theory of literature. So check out fonts. Find a way to amuse yourself and to have some fun. Here's another one. Ever heard of boxer Mike Tyson? When he avenged his friend Muhammad Ali's loss by beating Larry Holmes, he stood over Holmes, arms akimbo, with hands on the hips and elbows turned out. To the crowd, it looked like a spur-of-the-moment thing. But it was a tribute to battling Nelson, who in a fight in 1909 knocked out Dick Hyland in the 23rd round. They were tougher back then. And stood over him in that same pose, as if to say, this one's done. Who's next? To be part of history, you have to recreate history. For those with eyes to see, Tyson was becoming part of history. It must have been fun practicing that pose prior to the fight. Flash forward to today. Ever heard of philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche? Mm-hmm. Now, there's that famous profile photo of him. I'll show you. This is most people, have people seen this? Some? So, for my third book, I'm recreating this photo, except with me doing, and this is, I don't know if I don't know if you can see, but this just came in, when I was on my way here.
Very good.
That's awesome.
Do you like that?
Yes.
It's pretty fun. I love amusing details like this. Get a headshot. You never know when you need it. I've been fortunate enough to work with local photographers, Mike Rutliff, who did the headshot for the advertisement for this event. And just a few days ago, Hollywood photographer Clayton Cooper. There's some great talent in town. Keeping with the boxing theme, have you heard the saying from boxing that you gotta be the champ before you can become the champ? Writing's a test of endurance. One way to increase your endurance and have some fun is to get hypnotized. Has anyone tried hypnotism?
Oh, yeah.
Perfect. So, and how is it?
Strange.
Yeah, it's strange how it's strange how it works.
It can be useful in healing too.
Have you done it multiple times?
Yeah. I did it even in Vancouver at the Queen Elizabeth Theatre.
Oh wow.
And halfway, one of my good friends went up there, and halfway through, she was dancing around and everything, and I thought, I don't know if I trust this. So at the break, I stopped myself from being hypnotized and went and watched. So I got to see it both ways. It's kind of fun.
That's so rad. Well, I'll go over now how you can use hypnotism for the art of writing. I found a hypnotherapist who was surprisingly a friend from construction, Harmony Shaw. I called her up and we caught up on old times. Then she asked, "What would you like to come in for? Do you need to quit smoking or find some better life balance?" I said, "I need you to hypnotize me to write with bad intentions." She was like, "What?" I said, "No, listen, Harmony, I've become a writer. I heard the famous boxing trainer, Customato, used to hypnotize his fighters to hit with bad intentions. Well, I want to write with bad intentions." If she hadn't known me, she would have thought I was crazy. But since she knew me, she already knew I was crazy. Here's how hypnotherapy works. In the first session, the hypnotherapist takes notes of the messages you'd like to hear. There's no hypnotism in the first section. Then during the next session, she puts you into that state. You know, at night when you're drifting off and you're not asleep, or in the morning when you're awake but you're not quite awake. It's an hour session. The hypnotherapist's goal is to keep you in that dawning or that twilight state. I was skeptical. I went in after a crappy day at work and my mind was far away. But if Cuss did it to Tyson, I would do the same thing. So she starts. You hear the clock ticking on the wall. You hear the janitor mopping in the next room. Pretty soon I was feeling nappy. Then I could hear her starting. You'll write with bad intentions. Your words will persevere longer than the pyramids of Egypt. People will write PhDs on your unfinished fragments. Your ideas are as fundamental as the constants of nature. I remember thinking, damn, this is sounding fine. She goes on, and then it comes to an end, but too abruptly. After I said, harmony, that was 5 minutes. I thought it was supposed to be an hour. She smiled and looked with her eyes to the clock on the wall. Then I looked, and I was amazed. She's in town. Look her up if you want to take your game to the next level and have some fun. Harmony Shaw, great lady. We're still on point 3. To write, you have to amuse yourself. Perhaps these boxing anecdotes aren't doing it for you. Ever heard of writer Albert Camus? Nobel Prize-winning writer? He was a skeptic, a rational mind. He didn't believe in no hocus pocus. But you know what they found in his papers after he died? I was surprised to learn this myself. They found an elaborate astrological chart. He had hired an astrologer to cast his chart. But that's not even the fascinating part. You know what? You want to know what his specific question was? It was, when shall I achieve literary immortality? This one I haven't done yet. I'm a skeptic as well. But we're still on point 3. To write, you have to amuse yourself. You have to make it interesting. So if anyone knows an astrologer, I need that contact from you. This is great. On to point 4. To write, you have to get a job. In 2022, from writing and speaking, I made $5,000. Some years, it's less. For a long time, I worked as a plumber. For a long time, I hid that. At conferences, I'd be introduced as a scholar at large or independent scholar. I always hate those terms. In the last few years, I've introduced myself at academic conferences as a plumber. It always gets a few eyebrows. Some take me less seriously, and some take me more seriously. The best comment I've had from a proper scholar is that I wish I could be doing what you're doing. Then I realized not having to worry about tenure and the politics of academia gives me freedom and a different flavor to my work. I don't have to put together a massive critical apparatus with footnotes in 5 languages. People who read my books comment on the hassle-free language and the abundance of construction metaphors. It's like that because my literary ideas are tested on the job site. Having a job outside of writing gives my writing a unique voice, and it can do the same for you as well. Writing is a hard gig. 5,000 barely puts food on the table, and 5,000 for writing is a decent achievement. Plumbing, however, is a great gig. There's food on the table. High school diploma gets you in. You sign up, you work 10 months out of the year, and you go to school for 2 months. While you go to school, you collect employment insurance. You're paid to go to school. At the end of 4 years, with a union outfit, you'll be making $85,000. There's possibilities to advance. Lead hand, shop steward, foreman, site supervisor, general foreman, project manager, estimator. With a high school diploma, you can clear 6 figures, easy. Plumbing is the biggest thing that's allowed me to write. I started plumbing in 1996, and a shout out to those along the way who gave me a chance. Chris Bridgman, Peter Desaunier, Tor Hansen, and Gordon McLaren. If you're working a day job, yes, you can write. That's one of the reasons why my first book took 13 years. A lot of it was written on the bus. And I had a choice of 2 buses to work. I took the longer bus that took each way just over an hour so that it would give me more time to write. What I'm saying is, to pursue your dreams, it's good to have a real income. If you have something to say, you'll find a way. This brings us to point 5. To write, you have to handle the criticism. You know, dogs, they mark their territory. They whiz a little bit to say, hey, this is who I am, this is where I come from, this is mine. Well, writers are like dogs, except they don't whiz on the grass. They whiz on their books. They whiz on every page of their book to say, hey, this is mine. But every so often, another dog comes along and whizzes all over your books. In the technical talk of writers, we call this a bad review. How do you handle a bad review? Some say not to take it personal. Of course, is it easy for anyone not getting the bad review to say that? Oh, you were wearing your heart on your sleeve. Someone ripped it out, torn it to shreds, and then trampled up and down. Well, just don't take it personal. Do you ever get that? In all seriousness, you need the bad reviews. If your book has 100 5-star reviews, it looks suspicious. You need a few bad ones to make it look legit. Check out these reviews of Donna W. Hurley's translation of Roman historian Suetonius's The Caesars on Amazon. First one. This is Lori. 5 stars. I like this product very much. This is pretty meh. Now, check out next review. Jacob G. 5 stars. I needed this book for class. This is also meh. Now check this out. Anna in Texas. 1 star. Pure filth. I have to say, this is the filthiest book I have ever read my whole entire life. And I am 60 years old. if any of this is true, then the Caesars were the worst lowlives that ever walked the face of the earth.
What's the title of that book again?
This is Suetonius's The Caesars. And if you go on Amazon, it's Donna W. Hurley's translation. And if you go on Amazon, her review is there. They were the worst lowlives that ever walked the face of the earth. I wanted to know what was happening in Rome during the time of Jesus' birth, life, and death on the cross. I never imagined how bad it must have been. Again, if any of this book is true, the reason why I question the validity of what Suetonius wrote is that I don't see how he could have had known such detailed information about each of the Caesars and their particular vices. And even if he did, why write about it? I would not recommend this book to anyone, and I am tearing my copy to shreds and throwing it in the trash where it belongs. Hot damn! That's the review that money can't buy. It's just helped you sell 100,000 copies. One day, you'll get some vicious reviews. Some big dog's gonna come around and whiz all over your book. What do? I'm not sure, but here's some options. 1, ignore. This is professional, if somewhat meh. 2, treat it as a godsend. As the review from Anna in Texas makes it clear, there's no such thing as bad publicity, and a lot of the time, your best publicity is bad publicity. There's option 3, fall into a state of depression. This is a tough one, especially if one of your heroes or your mentors pans your book. It happens. My condolences. 4, write back something witty to the reviewer. One of my friends got a review saying that his writing was worse than imitation crab. Yeah, I don't know. Now, each time he gets a good review, he emails that reviewer, and in the subject line of his email, he puts the question, better than imitation crab? And no, he's never received a response back. 5, take the negativity as fuel to write the next great Canadian novel. This is the Michael Jordan or Lance Armstrong psychopathic approach to criticism. Effective, but you have to be a psycho. Here's a little secret about myself. In a room, I've always felt small. You know, some people, they enter a room and they take over. They have presence. They command the stage. Well, I'm the opposite. In life, no one sees me. A few months ago, we went to Maud's. I was going to get a round of shots, trying to get the waitress's attention, but to no avail. Buddy sitting next to me just shook his head. He said, "Ed, no one sees you." He put up his hand, smiled the golden smile, and the waitress was over lickety-split. I was like, damn, some people just have it. In life, I never had it. 150 pounds, 5'7", on a good day, 5'7". But when I'm writing, it's like I'm 100 foot tall. I'm like Napoleon on the plains of France. You know, sometimes life gives you some gifts that confirms what you think you know, but you weren't sure. But here's a story, a true story. Last year, I was talking about risk at Wake Forest University. After the conference dinner, we're standing around chatting. So I get introduced to this woman. Hey, this is Edwin Wong. He directed the play we saw the other night. She said, "Ah, I read your stuff." And then she looked me up and down. You know the book. And then she said, and I'm not kidding you, "I always thought you'd be taller." That's my favorite compliment of all time. Because it confirms what I always thought I knew. In life, I was nothing. But on the page, I'm so much larger than life. That's why I write. I'm marking out my territory in a way I couldn't do in life. But what do you do when you've marked out your territory and some other dog comes along? Some dogs, they fight back. Other dogs, they just roll over. I haven't figured out the answer to this one yet. And perhaps there's no right answer. But it's something that's good for us in the writing community to talk about. The bad review is something that's actually, in a way, critical. It wasn't until after I started getting bad reviews that I actually felt like I was starting to make it. With that in mind, what's a talk without some swag? So, I bought some complimentary copies of both my books. After the talk, whoever is interested, I'll put them here. You can grab one. And I hope people are interested. And here are also some of my cards. It has my, grab a card. It has the website for my blog on it. And I'll post this, these notes of this talk onto the blog if anyone wants to revisit it. So business card has the blog, and there's 5 complimentary copies. If you don't enjoy them, please do your best impression of Anna from Texas. And leave me a review on either Goodreads or Amazon. I would appreciate that so much. Any review is great. The worst is the oblivion of no review. Sometimes you get happy reviews. I remember in 2019, Joy reviewed my book for Island Writer. It was one of my first reviews, and I was so happy to see it. Point 6. This is the last point. It's a short point. And it's simply that to write, you have to write. Sounds simple, but it's difficult. There's even a podcast called WritingExcuses.com. Does anyone know about it? Is that Jordan Sanderson started it with some of his friends, the science fiction writer. They end every podcast by saying, "You're out of excuses. Now go write." Thank you to Elaine Tan for that, the link to that website. a lot of times, people feel they need to do all this prep before they start writing. I used to be like that. It's an awful habit. If you start reading great writers, you become attracted into the orbit of their thought. You'll never break free to find your own voice. To write, all you need to do is start writing. Push away those other books. Sounds hard, right? But no, really, it's easy. Because we had point one. To write, you have to have something to say. If you have something to say, you'll find a way. What is it that you're passionate about? What is it that only you could say that's unique to you? That's what you write about. And with that, I'm finished with what I have to say. If you've enjoyed my talk, you can find me on Twitter at Theory of Tragedy, or the other social media links are on my card. Thank you. Yes, I have questions.
Anyone have questions? We'll be right back. Oh, mine was Excellent.
Yeah, I had a question. You talk about a bit about dealing with criticism in the form of bad reviews. Do you have any comments about dealing with criticism while you're still writing, like when you ask other people for feedback on your writing?
I had, for my first book, I had beta writers. Oh yeah, beta readers. But maybe beta writers would actually, I should consider that for the third book. They gave me some gentle criticisms, which I really appreciated in the end. It was, I set it up with them that what I was after was, I asked them specifically I'd send it out chapter by chapter. Each chapter was about 6,000 words, and my specific question to the beta readers was which parts they found clear, what parts they liked, what parts they didn't like, and what parts were unclear. So it was simple, and the system for them to mark it up was happy faces or frowns. So whenever I saw a frown, and it was more than one of them that had it, I knew that section I would need to really work on. How has been your experience with readers while you're writing?
People read, well, it's really helpful, but it took a while to start to develop a thick skin. I know when the first draft of my first novel, I sent it off to one of my sisters, and she made some nice comments about realizing about the amount of work she knew I must have put in to create this draft. And then she sent me a how to write book. So that hurt a bit, I have to say.
Which how to write book did she send?
Oh, I've forgotten. I don't think I ever read it. I'm going through right now Jane Austen's letters, and a lot of her books she wrote for her family to tell like over dinner.
And when she became a published author, like her family's criticism is pretty blunt. They'll just tell her like this book sucked, or like, but looking at her letters, it doesn't really look like. I think she had also the thick skin, because some of the things her family was saying, I was just scratching I was like, can you say that? So.
No, but I have had a lot of good help from critic group friends, you know, so I mean, it's good, but
Yeah, in a way, there's always a chance of failure in writing, and what I like to say is that for not just for writing, but for any undertaking, unless there's a good chance you're going to fall flat on your face, don't even bother doing it. There has to be a chance of failure to make it worthwhile. Risk. Yes. Any other questions?
Can you talk a little more about, the intersection that you described between risk and plays, and what happens when they get close together?
Oh, I've been working on. This is one of the things that it used to take me 10 minutes to explain to people, but over the years I've condensed it. So I use Macbeth as my example, and so a play is, and especially a tragedy type play, is when the hero has a foolproof plan, nothing can go wrong. And then unexpected, low probability, high consequence events happen, and then everything is lost. So for Macbeth in Shakespeare's play, he's got the plan to kill Duncan, he's gonna kill the chamberlains, no one will know any better, and the plan is perfect. But then Birnam Wood comes to Dunsinane Hill, which he wasn't expecting, because when the witches tell him, oh, Macbeth, nothing can harm you until Birnam Wood removes to Dunsinane Hill. Macbeth says, oh, but that's the forest. Their roots are deep into the ground. They cannot come up Dunsinane Hill. I'm okay. But then when Malcolm's going through Dunsinane Hill, he tells his soldiers to cut off a little branch to camouflage themselves as they advance up the hill. So that comes to pass. Another thing that no one's expecting happens is that the witches tell Macbeth that no man or woman born can harm him. So in the final scene, Macbeth meets Macduff on the ramparts, and Macbeth has already killed his wife and all his little kids. And he says, Macduff, I have a charmed life. No man of woman born. I've already slaughtered all your kids and your wife. I don't need any more of your blood on my hands. No man of woman born can ever hurt me, so go find someone else to fight. And then Macduff says, fiend, I wasn't born from my mother's womb. I was untimely ripped. So he was born by C-section. And then, so Macbeth wasn't expecting that, so he ends up dying. And so my idea of theater, to take it a step further, is that theater is an exercise in risk management. And we go to the theater to see that more things can happen than what we think will happen. And then in life, we're better prepared for the unexpected. And comedy is the opposite. So comedy, you have, usually there'll be two kids and they'll be in love, but from the wrong social class, and they'll look like they can't get together, and then they'll find some recognition token or some trinket, and they'll both be from the right families, and then everyone gets married. And it's a chance is the fulcrum. So I think in life, we plan too many things. We're taught to make forecasts, strategies. Where am I going to be in 5 years? And we really discount the role that chance plays in our lives, which is one of the things I'm hoping that my books will increase people's sensibilities on. It's not really what you think will happen that matters, but it's just chance. Just chance.
Thank you so much, Edwin. That was so interesting, and I think everyone enjoyed it. And thank you all for coming tonight. And we hope to see you next month when we'll have a talk on current trends in magazine publishing.